You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension, a dimension of truth, a dimension of freedom, a dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the capitalist corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the capitalist corner.
Welcome, everybody, to the Capitalist Corner, a very special episode of the Capitalist Corner. I might add, I'm your host, Michael Liebowitz. With me today is my good friend, my brother, Andrew Bernstein. He's a professor of philosophy. He's an author, novelist. He does it all. This special episode actually is brought to you by a common Facebook friend of Andy and me. Christian Klein was kind enough to sponsor this so that we could finally get this debate going. The resolution is Trump is a flawed hero. Andy will be taking the affirmative. We agreed that Andy would get a 30-minute opening. Then I'll get my opening. And then, Andy, I figure 10-10, 5-5. We can ask each other some questions and then close. How's that sound for you?
Works for me, Michael.
All right. Well, without further ado, I will turn it over to the illustrious Professor Bernstein to make his case.
Thank you, Michael. And I also want to thank Christian Klein for sponsoring this and contributing to my favorite charity, the Bernstein Fund. But now, we agree, of course, that Donald Trump and the conservatives are very flawed. But my case for Trump as a flawed hero is very simple. You know, unfortunately, there are only two parties that could win national elections for Congress and the presidency. And I think one party, the Republicans, is very mixed. And the other party, the Democrats, controlled by the left, is flat out evil. Now, I just published, an essay a few weeks ago in capitalismmagazine.com on the left's war against America and the West. And I'm going to make reference to that. And I strongly recommend everybody to read it, because I think there's a lot of Americans who sense that there's something wrong with the left. But they don't recognize that the left is viciously, criminally insane, and and the left cares about one thing and only one thing, and that's power. And so my argument is going to be very simple. I mean, there's a lot of facets to it, but my argument is going to be very simple. The left is monstrously evil. Trump, at his best, stands up to these monsters, and that makes Trump a good guy. And certainly, whatever his flaws makes him a hero. So, what do I base my claim that the left is evil and it cares about one thing and only one thing, and that's power, and it's pushing us into totalitarianism? Now I'm going to call them communists at times, Michael, and everybody. Are they literally communists yet? No. I mean, not even Bernie Sanders or those guys are yet calling for the abolition of, for the nationalization of industries, the abolition of private property, this censorship of free speech. But the American left is trending strongly towards totalitarian communism. And it's not even communism anymore. It's a totalitarian hybrid that includes Nazi elements. Because notice the American left has become virulent racists. It's not just a Marxist class war ideology anymore. They're virulent racists today. They hate white people and they hate Jews. And furthermore, their welfare state policies are largely responsible for the thousands and thousands and thousands of black deaths every year by homicide from the warring drug gangs. And they never talk about it. They never, ever acknowledge their own culpability. Thomas Sowell talks about it. The late, great Walter Williams talk about it. Larry Elder talks about it. Left has never acknowledged their responsibility for the off the charts violence in many of the black urban neighborhoods. They don't care how many blacks get killed violently by black thugs every year. As long as they win the battle to push America into communism, thousands and thousands of black deaths every year are nothing but collateral damage to the left. So they're overt racists. But that's, as bad as that is, Michael, it's not even the worst of their sins. The worst of their sins is what they've done to the American school system, and that they've done it deliberately. I mean, how many times have I been on your show and you say, Andy always has merch? Well, here's some merch for everybody. My book on education, why Johnny still can't read or write or understand math, or what we can do about it. If you want to see that the left not only dumbed down the U.S. school system egregiously, but they did it deliberately, the evidence is in overwhelming evidence is in this book. Today, it's I mean, let me put it this way. There are still a lot of good classroom teachers, many. Some school districts are better than others. Some schools are better than others. But as a general rule, across the country, the kids don't get educated anymore. The leftists who run the school system for going back to John Dewey at Columbia University and right after World War I, more than 100 years now, they've militated against phonics. The one method that is effective in teaching reading. They've cut out history, replaced it with social studies. They've dumbed down the literature curriculum, the science curriculum, et cetera, et cetera. The kids know almost nothing about, most of them, they know almost nothing about history, including American history. Some of them struggle my college students, some of them struggle just to read. All of this done deliberately, because then they can't critique. If you don't have strong reading skills, you don't have strong thinking skills, you don't know any history or science, you can't critique the leftist propaganda. That communism is better than capitalism, that man-made warming is destroying the planet, that the white race is evil and responsible for genocide and slavery and imperialism, and white Americans are all racist. All this propaganda from the left, which is what the kids get in the schools. They've controlled the education system for 100 years, and they're pushing us towards totalitarianism. And of all their evils, that's the worst. They've deliberately stunted the minds of millions and millions and millions and millions, and did I say millions of American kids? Reminds me of Carl Sagan, billions upon billions, the great astronomer used to say. They've destroyed the school system. They've done it on purpose. And the conservatives, who are bad enough on this issue, remember they banned evolution and stuff like that. But this systematic attack on phonics and reading and intellectual development, no, this is the left. Freedom of speech. Now, we saw for the Twitter files that the Biden administration was coaching social media platform. In other words, they were leaning on them to ban certain people from access to social media. Anybody who disagreed with government pronouncements on COVID, on the vaccines, on lockdowns and masks and so on. And, amongst the people they banned were a number of MDs, people who were highly qualified to speak on this. This is censorship. Also, they're establishing at Homeland Security, what was it, a governance board a disinformation governance board. Now, I was not the only free speech advocate who screamed, Ministry of Truth. That was bad enough. It's bad enough if the U.S. government, this reminds me, Michael, when Jacinda Ardern was Prime Minister of New Zealand, a leftist, obviously, during COVID, she said, I don't remember her exact words, but she said, about COVID, unless you hear it from us, we'll be your sole source of truth, she said, about COVID. Unless you hear it from us, it's not true. It's like, what? The government now arrogates to itself the power and the moral authority to pronounce truth? No, that's the attitude of the left, and they'll censor anybody who disagrees. So we saw Biden put that into practice, with the Twitter files showed in and the governance board at Homeland Security. Now, notice something that's important. Bad enough if the U.S. government had established a disinformation governance board, let's say at the Department of the Interior, let's say, and had arrogated, or the Department of Commerce, and had arrogated to itself the moral authority to proclaim truth, to distinguish truth and falsity that the rest of us were supposed to, bow down to. That'd be bad enough. But they established it at Homeland Security, which is a law enforcement agency. What does that mean? Does that mean if I publicly disagree with the government's pronouncement on climate change, let's say, that armed federal agents may show up at my door the next day and arrest me? Yeah, I think it does, which is the only reason for establishing it at a law enforcement agency. So freedom of speech is a major issue here. Then the corruption of language. Notice this insanity on gender issues today. What is a woman? You had a judge and who became a Supreme Court justice claiming before Congress she couldn't define what a woman is. I mean, I could define what a woman is in 2 seconds without consulting either a biologist or a dictionary. A woman is an adult, female human being. That's a good start. She's adult to distinguish her from girls who are children. She's female to distinguish her from males. And she's a human being to distinguish her from other species. It's not hard. Obviously, the SCOTUS justice could define what a woman is. She was just bowing down to the woke insanity. Why? Well, what is up with all of this? Men can be women. They can participate in women's sports and everything. Now, that's bad enough, Michael, because that's a terrible injustice to great female athletes who work very hard to become expert in their sports. And now they have to compete against biological men. And in the combat sports, it's beyond unjust. It's dangerous. Women can get severely hurt or even killed. But it goes, as evil as that is, it goes deeper than that. And it goes back to 1984 and George Orwell. Because if we define woman such that biological males can be included under the rubric of womanhood, what does that do to the language? Why insist on this to children? And the biological mutilation of children is an obscenity that the left has perpetrated on us. They're too young to make that decision. If they're going to have gender transformation surgery, but we're gonna preach this vicious nonsense, this insanity to children. That men can be women and men can get pregnant and all this stuff. Why? What's in it for the left? Well, they care about only power. So I think we know what the answer is. If they can confuse children on issues that are observationally apparent, we could observe. My sister had drawings on the wall of her bathroom. She has an outrageous sense of humor. And there was a little boy and a little girl. They look like twins. Maybe they're 5. They're gonna get into the bathtub. They're naked. Little girl's looking at her brother's crotch, and the little boy says, "No, you can't touch it. You broke yours off already." Now this is funny. But the point is not the humor here. The point is that gender is observational. We can directly observe what gender a human being is. If the left can succeed in confusing children on even observational points like that, then certainly they can confuse us regarding much more abstract claims like freedom, war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is truth. Ignorance is strength, and so on and so on. Orwell's brilliant formulations from 1984. They could confuse us on moral and political abstractions. That's the goal. That's always the shabby secret of the left, is they're going to push us into communist totalitarianism. Well, today, I didn't finish that point from before, did I? That their form of totalitarianism today is not just communism. It's a hybrid totalitarianism, because they've incorporated their egregious racism. They've reversed the favored and disfavored races from the original Nazis. They hate white people, but they've introduced a race war element into their class war ideology. They're now, the Nazis fought race war, the communists fought class war, the Muslims fight holy war, but they now have a hybrid form of totalitarianism, mixture of race war and class war. And so, but the push is always towards totalitarianism. Climate change. Professor William Happer, physicist at Princeton University, put it nicely about climate change. He said, "I could live with the term hoax, but I prefer the term scam." Yeah, it's a scam. I got more merch for you, Michael. My booklet, The Truth About Climate Change. If you want the truth about climate change, there is a process of natural climate change goes back millions of years, maybe billions of years, and the modern warm period that we're in today is just another period. But before the modern warm period was the Little Ice Age. Before that was the medieval warm period. Before that was the Dark Age cold period. Before that was the Roman warm period. On and on and on and on. Go back to the Minoan warm period, roughly 3,500 years ago. The Earth was warmer than it is today by several degrees Celsius. This is all irrefutable facts of science. So it's a hoax. It's a scam. It's not just about wrecking the economy. Which the leftists will use it to do. It's deeper than that. It's about the push into totalitarianism. It's about the leftists being able to command us how much fossil fuels we could use, if any, what kind of cars we can drive, what kind of appliances we can use, how much air conditioning we can deploy, if any, and so on and so forth. Again, it's a part of the push into totalitarianism. And Trump has the courage to stand up and say, it's a hoax. He's right. It is. And take all the hate, from the left. DEI. Now, Trump has stood, diversity, equity, inclusion. No. How about individual rights and the merit system? Race does. Let's put it this way. I think the left are egregious racists. In reality, character matters all the time on every issue of human life. Competence matters regarding your profession, doing your job. Race never matters. Diversity is not an ideal. Equity is not an ideal. Inclusiveness is not an ideal. Individual rights is an ideal. The merit system is an ideal. And notice one consequence of merit rather than diversity. Notice the U.S. military. Make the U.S. military lethal again. And I think Trump's done a good job of that. And Hegseth, who's a very good appointee by Trump, on Trump's part. No more men with dresses, at the Pentagon. Just men, and maybe women too, who are warriors, but men, not men in dresses. And the U.S. military is lethal again. And the Ayatollah found out about it. So let me. That's the left. And I could go on with their evils, and their push towards totalitarianism, but let me spend a few minutes on Trump's opposition to the left, which is where his heroic qualities come from. First of all, you remember the Hippocratic Oath? At the very least, do no harm is part of it. And Trump, at the very least, is not a leftist. At his best, he stands up to the leftists, and this is where his heroic elements come in. Already mentioned climate change, where he openly states it's a hoax, and he's opposed to it, and he lifted restrictions on U.S. energy producers because of that. Already stated his support for the merit system, no DEI, which includes no military men in dresses. Now, regarding the school system and the overt attacks on the minds of American children for 100 years now, Trump has talked about doing away with the Department of Education. I hope he does it in time. I hope he does it. It'll help. It'll be one less bureaucratic agency pushing the leftist insanity on the schools. It'll be a step towards decentralization. Now, ultimately, to save education in this country, we need to abolish the government school system. We need to abolish, public education. We need to privatize the system. Doing away with the Federal Department of Education would be a step in that direction. Decentralize. It goes back to the states. Ultimately, it's got to go to the parents. But it would be a step in the right direction. The key point here is Trump recognizes the horrors of what the leftists have done to the U.S. school system. Freedom of speech. another key issue. There hasn't been any government censorship under Trump. There's no, there's no that I know of. There's no federal agencies, whether it's the FBI or anybody, leaning on social media platforms to deplatform people that the government disagrees with. There's no disinformation governance board at Homeland Security or anywhere else. Further, Trump and his team reject the corruption of the language and the Orwellian motivation for it. They reject this nonsense that we don't know what a woman is, or men can be women, or anything like that. They're opposed. Now, one of the practical consequences of that is they're opposed to men competing in women's sports, which is a step towards justice and towards protecting women's health. As I stated before, in some sports, it's dangerous. But above all, it's even more important than that, it's rejecting the corruption of the language that the left uses to push us towards totalitarianism. On immigration, Trump has sealed the border, working on getting the criminals out of the country. Now, I think we need to be much more stringent regarding immigration from the Islamic world. I think there need to be real restrictions placed on immigration of Muslims into this country. You don't want to eliminate honest people from coming in, but you want to make goddamn sure that anybody who comes into this country has no allegiance to any jihadist organization. You want to make damn sure of that. I think Trump recognizes open borders, in the sense that the left means, is an insane policy. There's no better way to describe it. It's insane. It means anybody can come in the country. You don't vet the immigrants. Criminals can come in, jihadists can come in, cartel members, whatever. Immigrants have to be vetted. And I strongly support, open immigration, meaning all honest people who aren't criminals or jihadists or anything like that come into the country, because it benefits. Immigration has benefited of honest people, has benefited the country enormously. But immigrants have to be vetted, especially from Islamic countries, for obvious reasons. And if you don't know what people don't know what the obvious reasons are, is because Islam, the core philosophy in its holy text, the Quran and the Hadith, openly calls for holy war. Now, there are millions and millions and millions of Muslims who are nominal Muslims. They're not practicing their religion fully. The danger is they come in the country and then they start to study Islam. They start to practice the religion. They realize they have to be holy warriors. Happens. The media says they become radicalized. The truth is they become Islamified. They become actual practicing Muslims, not just nominal Muslims. We need to have very stringent restrictions regarding Islamic immigration for that reason, and we need to ban Sharia law in this country. And the Democrats will never do it. I don't know if Trump will, but with Trump there's hope. Will the Democrats ban the Department of Education? No. Has Trump done it? No. Has he talked about it? Yes. Will he do it? Maybe. There's hope. With Trump. So I can wrap this up by saying that, reiterating my main points, the left's goal is totalitarianism, some hybrid of communism and National Socialism, the hybrid of class war and race war. Trump stands in their way, which is why they hate him so much. And he said it nicely himself. I don't remember his exact words. He said, "They're not after me. They're after you," meaning the American people. I'm just in their way. And we saw the courage, when somebody took a shot at him in Pennsylvania a couple of years ago and, grazed his ear, and he got up, and he said, "Fight, fight, fight." This is why he's beloved by millions of American voters, because they recognize the left is evil. Trump may be a mixed case, but here's the one principle his critics accuse him of being unprincipled, which to a large degree I think he is. He's a pragmatist, in contrast to the left, who are overt nihilists. But there's one principle I think that Trump generally subscribes to and adheres to in practice, and that is America first. And that's why tens of millions of American voters love Trump, and why I respect him. He's going to fight for that. The American people, the American sense of life that Ayn Rand spoke about, I think is still alive to some degree. And not what it was 50 years ago, but still alive to some degree. American people, not all leftists, terrifyingly, I think close to half the country is, but at least half the country is not. Maybe slightly more. As a rough guesstimate. The American people still love America. They still recognize America is special. They recognize there's something wrong with the left. Seriously, severely wrong with the left. The left hates America. The left wants to destroy America. And Trump loves America. He'll stand up for America, misguided in many ways, but still he loves America. He'll stand up for America, stand up for the American people. And this is why tens of millions of American voters love him, and that's the main reason why I respect him. So that's my case, Michael. Thank you for giving me the time.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, so just so everybody knows, I do not have the time here to name every source that I have. I have an abundance of them. What I would ask the audience is to please fact check me. Go to your favorite fact checkers and just see if what I'm saying is accurate. So the one thing that Andy did not do during his speech is tell us what is meant by a hero. Now, there's a debate over what a hero is, and there's a pretty straight line through. One side holds that heroism is just courage. The other side, going back to Aristotle, says it's not just courage, but there also has to be an element of character, an element of morality. As Andy said, character matters in every area of life. And when we move up to objectivism, the concept of hero is somebody that is moral in the pursuit of their values, courageous, and accomplishes a great deal. Now, if we're going to say moral, the focus here needs to be on rationality. Rationality is the font of morality. Remember that. And remember that character is a vital component of heroism in objectivism. And the reason I want to talk about objectivism is because Andy is an objectivist. Andy has written on heroism from an objectivist perspective. So it's vital.
There you go.
Remember, yes.
There's the merch.
Yes, more merch. So it's questionable whether in objectivism the concept of flawed hero is even a legitimate concept. But let's just address. So remember, I'm going to ignore the courage part because I don't care. What I want to focus on are Trump's character, Trump's accomplishment, Trump's ideas, and the ideas that he's ushering in. So when it comes to his character, just think about the people that know him best. Mark Milley, James Mattis, John F. Kelly, John Bolton, H.R. McMaster, Mark Esper, Jeffrey Rosen, Richard Donahue, Mike Pence, all people who were involved in Trump's first administration have all condemned his character. Every single one of them. There's a lot more, but I only have a half hour. I don't want to go through that whole half hour listing those people off. So Trump has bragged on the Howard Stern show in 2005 about making excuses basically to go into women's dressing rooms at the beauty pageants. Not a man of sound character. Trump has sexualized his daughter, saying things like, I might be dating her if she weren't my daughter, commenting on her voluptuousness, participating in discussions about her breasts. Howard Stern asked Trump, is it okay if I refer to your daughter as a piece of ass? And Donald Trump said yes. He's also a known philanderer and somebody that cheats on his spouses. And he actually mocked somebody that was taken hostage, or rather captured in war, in John McCain, saying he prefers his heroes not to get captured. Now, what about honesty? The Washington Post fact check maintained a comprehensive database for Trump during his first term, tallied over 30,000 lies or exaggerations told by Trump. Now, I'm not going to go through all of them, but let me just give you some that you can fact check immediately if you would like to. While running for office in 2015 and 16, Trump said that he opposed the Iraq war from the beginning. However, if you go to the September 11th, 2002 episode of the Howard Stern show, you will hear Trump reluctantly, I'll grant him, but he did support it. While he was running for office, he said Ted Cruz is not eligible to be president because he was born in Canada. He said Ted Cruz is eligible. Then he said Ted Cruz is not eligible. He also, of course, at one point claimed that there were celebrating Arabs in New Jersey after 9/11. That's a lie. He's repeatedly said he had the best economy ever, best tax cuts, biggest tax cuts. Not true. He even lies about mundane stuff that's completely irrelevant, like the size of his crowds, the biggest crowd ever for his inauguration speech, lied about whether it rained. Recently, he came out and said that if we didn't go to war with Iran, we would have been hit in a week. No, none of his intelligence says that. So he also claimed in an interview with Jake Tapper that he did not know who David Duke was. He was unfamiliar with him, so couldn't disavow him. But there's video from 2000 of him criticizing David Duke as a bigot. So Andy mentioned immigration. Now, Trump consistently claims he's deporting all the criminals. So let's just take a look at the people that were sent to a prison, many of which without due process, in Venezuela. 261 deportees, 238 Venezuelans. The government claimed that there was gang affiliation. Investigators found tattoos used as indicators. The DH, first of all, experts say the tattoos are not good indicators. Again, fact check me. Of the people that were deported to that prison, 32 had criminal convictions. 6 were violent convictions. 6. This you could check your government numbers. You can look into it. Trump also claimed that when he was bombing drug boats. Well, first let me back up just a bit here because this is very, very important about the people that have been deported in total. I want to make sure I have this here. I believe it's somewhere around. Let's see, around I think 6% have violent convictions out of all the people that Trump's deported. Put it this way: the overwhelming majority of people that Trump has deported did not have violent convictions. He's lying when he says they do. Trump also has said that these boats that he also, ties the Tren de Aragua to the Venezuelan government, although his own intelligence says that's not accurate. Okay, drug boat attacks. Trump has never offered any proof above his own word that these boats were carrying drugs. None. Even if they were, it's an act of war because it culminated in going after another country. Right? No congressional approval, no congressional authorization, and it's also exacerbating the extremely failed, flawed, unjust war on drugs. Now, what about the lies that we've talked about when it comes to Donald Trump? Perhaps the biggest lie he's told, and he continues to repeat it to this day, is that the 2020 election was stolen. Right? Now, how do we know he's lying? Well, let's consider Trump's history first. Trump has a history whenever he loses anything of saying it's rigged. This includes from the 1990s. He said that banks were treating him unfairly, regulators were treating him unfairly, lawsuits about the USFL were unfair. He's also said that court cases were unfair. He is also now in the 2006 campaign when he lost Iowa, he said that was rigged against him. When he lost Colorado, he said that was rigged against him. When he did not win the popular vote, although he won the Electoral College, he said that was rigged against him. He even claimed that the Emmys were rigged against him. Everything he says is rigged against him. We also have Steve Bannon, Trump supporter, former member of his administration, in 2020 was caught on tape before the election saying Trump is going to declare victory, but that doesn't mean he's the winner. Steve Bannon acknowledged that Trump was going to claim the election was stolen. This is before we even had the election. If you exclude court cases and look only at audits, reviews, and investigations by governments, elected officials, and independent bodies, there's been between 10 and 20 that I can find investigations, all found that there was not enough fraud in the 2020 election to impact the results. There's fraud in every election, not enough to impact the results, including Trump's attorney general told him, no, there's not enough. The election wasn't stolen. You lost, Mr. Trump. But he continues to repeat it. He even said that the Constitution can be suspended in situations like that because it was so important. Also, we have the book, or the report rather, Lost, Not Stolen, compiled by conservative jurists like Ted Olson, for instance, former Solicitor General. I think there's 8 of them that compiled it. In the over 60 court cases that Trump had, and lost all of them. And now we constantly hear, of course, they claim that, well, these cases weren't heard on the merits. 30 of them were heard on the merits. And he lost. So we have a pattern of Trump claiming everything's rigged against him. We have Steve Bannon saying beforehand that Trump is going to claim this is rigged against him. We have 10 to 20 investigations that have said it's not rigged against him. We've had 60 court cases, 30 of which were heard on the merits, that said it wasn't rigged against him. And we have his own Justice Department saying it wasn't rigged against him. And that he was told repeatedly that it wasn't rigged against him. Yet he maintains the lie to this day that the 2020 election was stolen. That in and of itself, we have a history going back to 1797 of presidents admitting when they've lost elections, of peaceful transfers of power, of not claiming things like this. Trump maintains to this day that it was stolen. It was not. Please, please, please fact check me on every single claim I've made. Now, you want to talk about individual rights. Okay, perhaps the most indicative thing about Trump that will point out what he thinks about individual rights in their application and property rights is his support for the Kelo decision out of New London, Connecticut, where private property was confiscated by the government and given to another private company. Trump is all for that. So let's consider Trump's first term. If I can, I found the deported violent crime stats, by the way. Let me just cite these real quickly. So it's roughly 5% of people detained by ICE during Trump's second presidency have convictions for violent crimes. 5%. 5% of them have convictions for violent crimes. And for that, we are told that the streets need to be covered with military and ICE agents. 5% convicted of violent crimes. Okay, now, let me just flow forward. In Trump's first term, he compiled $7.8 trillion of additional debt. He continually pressured the Fed to lower interest rates, and there's some evidence that they complied. He pressured the Saudis and the Russians to cut oil production so as to elevate the price. And, of course, his tariffs. To argue that Trump, and he didn't, but if anybody argues that Trump's policies did not contribute to the subsequent inflation, take an Econ 101 course. It's really, really simple. In his second term so far, we have tariffs. We have more debt. He continues to pressure the Fed on interest rates. He's threatened private companies. He has invested money in the housing market, taken it from Fannie to prop down interest rates, to push down interest rates. He has also given executive orders to prevent corporations from buying private homes. He has also bought stake in multiple companies, government stake in private companies, government ownership of private companies is what that means. And he's also threatened numerous companies that if they don't do his bidding, including Apple was one of them, that he's going to he's going to tariff them, he's going to regulate them, this and that. The idea that Trump is the free speech president is beyond laughable. In those same Twitter files that Andy cited, The Twitter files and subsequent investigation revealed that the Trump administration and its allies frequently contacted Twitter to request the removal of specific content or the reinstatement of accounts. He was pressuring social media to do his bidding. Now, did he pass laws? Well, no, but I suggest for anyone who thinks that pressure doesn't matter to see Ayn Rand's essay, Have Gun, Will Travel. Because when the government tells you something, like we want you to do it, there's an implied threat and there's a numbing effect. How many media companies has Trump told that he is going to revoke their licenses if they continue to give him bad coverage? You can go see it. You can look it up. In speeches, he's done it. His FCC chairman did it in regard to Jimmy Kimmel, that they need to get him off the air, things of that nature. To say that doesn't have a numbing effect on free speech is absolutely ridiculous. Of course it does. He is not the free speech president. He's not the free market president. Okay, Andy did a lot talking about the left and how dangerous they were. Fair enough. But what about, first of all, in objectivism, we don't judge our heroes based on who they fight. We judge them by their own character and accomplishments. So it is irrelevant how bad the left is to whether Trump can be called a hero. I'm not saying that people can't, vote for him, say he's the lesser of two evil. I'm speaking specifically to the hero element. But what about the religious element that's involved here? What about all the times that Trump has evoked the will of God, including saying, by the way, that he was saved by God, saying that Christians will have power again, saying that we need to have religion in this country, all that. Now, what about also the right-wing movements that are gaining ascendancy? Post-liberalism, for instance. Post-liberalism, Patrick Deneen, highly critical of the Enlightenment, highly critical of Enlightenment liberalism, highly critical of Enlightenment individualism, and critical of capitalism itself. You know who was highly influenced by Patrick Deneen? Our vice president, the person that was selected by Trump to be the next in line, is influenced by them. What about the heritage Americans who want to trace, judge your Americanness based on how far back you can trace your ancestry? That's coming from the right. What about the Groypers, the white nationalists that, spearheaded by Nick Fuentes, who Trump had dinner with, who's got 1 million+ followers? What about the grifters on the right? You want to talk about anti-Semitism? What about Candace Owens? What about Tucker Carlson and the things that they say? That's on the right. So while the left is bad, the right is too. The way that we fight bad ideas and bad philosophy is not with an emotionalist pragmatist who is highly unethical and highly irrational. The way that we fight it is with good philosophy, by identifying sound principles, sound policy. None of this applies to Trump. So let me just back up to the beginning. A hero is somebody with good character that pursues their values with courage and accomplishes much. Trump has horrible character, and his accomplishments, they're balanced, if not outweighed, by all the bad things he's done. With that, I will turn it back over to the illustrious Professor Bernstein for 10 minutes.
Well, thank you, Michael. I would just start out by saying there are two guys. One's determined to murder you, and the other may or may not protect you. And that's what we have here. That's the situation. Who do you choose? Well, if you want to live, it's a no-brainer. You choose the guy who, one, doesn't want to murder you, and two, may possibly protect you. And that's and that's the case here. That's the choice. And you're profoundly mistaken about flawed heroes, Michael. And I think in my chapter on flawed heroes and heroes, legends, champions, I know you've read this book, haven't you?
No, I've read some essays though.
Oh, okay, all right. My chapter on flawed heroes, I used Thomas Jefferson as I think is as a very, very good example, who was seriously flawed morally. I don't just mean about the slavery issue, but about the underhanded, duplicitous tactics he used against his Federalist rivals, including George Washington and his old buddy John Adams. I don't make this stuff up. I get it from Joseph Ellis, American historian and founding brothers. But I still think Jefferson, despite significant moral flaws in his character, I still think Jefferson is a hero because of all the obviously great things he did. There are flawed heroes, and I think Trump is an example. Is he as heroic as Thomas Jefferson? No, but he nevertheless he does. And I disagree with you when you said we don't judge heroes by who they fight. No, in part we do. And part of Winston Churchill's heroism was that he recognized early on that Hitler and National Socialism was evil, and that Britain had to be ready to fight them, and he did. And similarly here, Trump, I think, recognizes to at least some degree that the left are freaking monsters, Michael. There's no way to equate the bad things from the conservatives with the leftists. The bad things from the conservatives are real, without a doubt. And you're absolutely right. We fight them both, all evils, with rational ideas. But we have to survive in the meantime in the real world. And only two parties can get elected. One party is monstrously evil. The other party's mixed. The head of the mixed party stands up for us, at least some issues, against the monsters. That makes him a hero. And more fundamentally, it makes him the obvious choice in any election. Now, regarding free speech, if Trump is leaning on social media platforms, to voice people who agree with him and to deplatform people who don't, then that is very wrong. And I'm going to criticize the hell out of him for that. But I doubt it was on the same degree as to what Biden was doing, what the left will do if they come back into power. And like I said, he certainly didn't establish a disinformation governance board in the federal government, and above all, didn't establish it at a law enforcement agency, which is terrifying. So now, one thing I always admired about you, Michael, of many, is that you're the master of facts. You do your research, you do your homework, you have all these facts at your at your fingertips, and that's very good. I just want to point out here, though, not all facts are created equal. Not all truths are created equal. Some of the stuff you cited about Trump, let's say it's all true. He's cheating on his wife. He supports eminent domain, all this stuff. That's bad. That's bad. We could condemn him for that. And we should, and we do. But that's not of the same proportion as standing up against the monsters who want to push us into totalitarianism. That makes Trump a much better person than they are. And yes, it makes him heroic. Like I said, I think there's the analogy. One guy wants to kill you. The other guy may or may not protect you. It's a no-brainer if you want to live. He's vastly superior to the left by many orders of magnitude. It's not even close. And did you ever get the idea that maybe I don't like the left? I hate them. And I'll fight the left to my last agonized breath because they're evil. And because Trump, to some degree, supports me in that, I support him. And yes, I think that makes him heroic. You stand up against and you fight monsters in the name of semi-freedom or that makes you heroic. And there's one last point I want to make. Where we agree on an important issue is the way to fight evil, whether it's the monstrous evil or the lesser evil, is with rational ideas. Thank God for Ayn Rand, that she gave us the philosophy of objectivism. Now, sadly, objectivism hasn't spread anywhere near as quickly as I would have hoped. When I was 16 years old in 1968, and when I first I was fortunate to have a high school teacher who was an objectivist, and I read all of Ayn Rand's books. I knew right away that this was the most important thing in the world. I used to wake up in the morning as a teenager, 1968, and think, where are all the objectivists? Atlas Shrugged is so clear. Why aren't there more objectivists in the country? Well, here we are. Was it 58 years later? Now I really wonder, where are all the objectivists? I got to admit, it dismays me that Ayn Rand's books and ideas have not gone on in America or anywhere else nearly to the magnitude that I would have hoped and liked. I met somebody at Ford Hall Forum in 1978. I think it was. I was in grad school. Ayn Rand was nearing the end of her life. And somebody, a woman from Wisconsin. If you're out there, Connie, I still remember you. She said to me, we're standing online, and she said to me, I'll never forget this. She said, quote, "People should be out in the streets discussing nothing but this," she said, meaning Ayn Rand's novels and ideas. They're so important. People should be out in the streets discussing nothing but this. Absolutely right, Connie, if you're out there. And I never met her again. But they aren't. So I don't know how much time it's going to take, Michael. Mm-hmm. I don't know. A lot longer than I would have hoped. We need time. The left is not going to give us time. If they win the next, you remember after the 2020 election, that guy, I don't remember his name, but you like to fact check stuff. Fact check this. There was a young guy who was from California, just elected to the DNC, who said that we should denazify Trump supporters. In effect, he was calling for re-education camps, mm-hmm. for Trump supporters. And I remember AOC that fall after the election saying she wanted lists of political enemies, Congresswoman. If the left wins the next election and they control the presidency and both houses of Congress, I think we're going to see calls for re-education camps, denazification programs, lists of political enemies. I'm going to scurry down to Texas very quickly, Michael. If before they get inaugurated. No, I mean this seriously. I believe now it's very possible that my life will end in a gulag. From the left. I don't mean from the conservatives. I mean in a leftist gulag. We need time. We need time. I don't know how much time to spread objectivism. The left won't give us that time. I'm done. The left won't give us that time. Okay. Trump buys us a few years holding the left at bay. That's part of his heroism.
Okay. I'm not here to defend the left, but I will say the idea that Andy Bernstein is going to end up in a gulag if the Democrats win is ludicrous. That's not going to happen.
Unfortunately, you're mistaken, my brother.
Like I said, I'm not here to defend the left.
Yeah, all right, go ahead.
But you say we don't judge. I said we don't judge heroes by who they fight, and you said in part we do. Okay, but what's the rest? The rest of that part? We judge them by character. By that, then Stalin would be a hero because he fought Hitler. No. But I don't care. No, of course not. And of course Trump is not a hero. If you want to make the case that, you say we have this two-guy choice, what that is saying is that you can vote the lesser of two evils. That's not the same as saying he's a hero. You said, well, all facts are not equal. And you said the stuff the left says, the stuff the left does are so much worse. The president of the United States, Donald Trump, who's president right now, lied and claimed an election was stolen from him, Andy. Repeatedly lied. He's still lying to this day. That undercuts the very foundation of our republic. He's still lying about it. The proof is overwhelming that it wasn't stolen from him. It led to riots on January 6th. You know what Trump did to the people that rioted on January 6th? He pardoned all of them. 1,500 pardons. This is a guy who's concerned with justice and concerned with law enforcement. So let's just see here. Who some of the people that he pardoned 1,500 people. That's how many he pardoned. So who did he pardon? I got it. It's going to come up. Of course, it didn't come up, so I can't find it. But I know that he pardoned guys that were up with sentences of up to 22 years, with crimes convicted of crimes as much as assault on police officers. 1,500 of them he pardoned. He's also pardoned his friends. He also pardoned a convicted drug trafficker. He's not somebody concerned with justice, not even a little bit. There's no evidence for it. I can't say this enough. He still lies about a stolen election. You talk about the Dems going after their political enemies. Trump, first of all, in Trump's first term, there's evidence he tried, but there were obstacles in his way that stopped him. This time, he surrounded himself with sycophants. He went after James Comey, Letitia James. John Bolton has been indicted. I don't know if Trump's behind that one. Trump went on Twitter or Truth Social and said the people are demanding you do something. How do we know that these charges are bullshit? First of all, we know because of the amount of Trump's attempted indictments where he couldn't even get indictments. But, and they say you can indict a ham sandwich. Some he couldn't even get indictments. The other ones, prosecutors resigned so that they weren't going to bring his case. He went out and got his own private lawyer, appointed her to the task. Her cases got tossed out of court. So to claim that, well, the left is going to go after their political enemies, but he's not, that's just contrary to the facts. I'm not saying the left won't do it, but he will too. If you want to say Trump is the choice because he's the lesser of two evils, fine. I won't even argue. I don't care. The claim is that he's a hero. My issue is never with the people that voted for him. It's the people who support him. No matter what he does, the fact of the matter is he is no hero, flawed or otherwise. His character is horrible. That alone negates being a hero. The other part of it, as I pointed out, you fight the left by instituting leftist policies, by regulation. I mean, not regulation, by trying to tamper with the housing market, by preventing corporations from buying companies, by threatening private companies that you're going to do things to them, by taking stakes in private companies. That's how you fight the left. Remember in his first term, he banned bump stocks. And then he came out and said, take the guns, then give due process. That's leftist stuff. This guy is no hero. Full stop. All right, Andy, have you said everything you want, or do you have more to say? I don't know. If you do, you can, and then we can get to the question asking phase.
Well, I just wanted to respond briefly,
okay,
to what you just said. Going after political enemies, and gulags and concentration camps and stuff. I wish I could agree with you, Michael. I wish you were right. But when members of the DNC are calling for denazification programs for Trump supporters, and congresswomen are calling for lists of political enemies, no, they're going to push us into totalitarianism and gulags. The good news for me is I'll probably be gone by the time that happens. I don't know if it's 10 years from now, 20 years from now, but the left trends strongly towards totalitarianism, towards communism. And just a couple of things. Communism and Nazism, which the direction the left tends in, are more evil than Christianity and Christian nationalism in an absolute sense. And I've written a whole essay on that. But beyond that, the left has moved much closer towards communism than the conservatives have towards a Christian theocracy. So in terms of buying us time, there's no question in my mind who's the better case. But to me, the most important point is who do we choose to buy us time? And it's a no-brainer. It's Trump by a million miles over these other leftist bastards. But I know you wanted to debate whether he's a hero. And so, I think he's a flawed hero. There are flawed heroes.
Well, hold on.
Let me finish. Heroes aren't necessarily morally perfect, Michael. They're not all like Howard Rourke. Maybe in real life some are. I don't even think Ayn Rand, was morally perfect. I think some of those schisms and stuff that, I think she made errors, and some of them may have been errors of honest judgment. Some of them may have been moral flaws. I don't know. Let's put it this way: if I was to condemn Ayn Rand for moral flaws, I would feel compelled to praise her for about 15 years first for all of her accomplishments that made my life a million times better, and that could save the human race. But she's a towering hero. Doesn't mean she's morally flawless. Maybe she was, maybe she wasn't. I don't know. heroes don't have to be morally flawless in order to be heroes. Now, Trump's no Ayn Rand, and he's no Thomas Jefferson, and and anything like that. But he does stand up to the guys who want to kill us, and and establish a totalitarian state, and that's heroic.
Okay. Again, I'm not talking about who to choose. I don't care. I'm not going to defend the left. Secondly, the reason I chose this proposition to debate is because Andy has repeatedly said it on social media that Trump is a flawed hero, and that's what people want to debate. They don't want to debate. They didn't want to hear us debate how bad the left is or is not. Trump isn't just morally flawed, Andy. He's morally depraved. He doesn't even care about morality. He doesn't even apologize when he's done wrong. He has not apologized for any of these things. He keeps doing them. So to say, well, people are flawed. Oh, yeah, Ayn Rand is flawed, but she was committed to doing what was right. She was committed to reason. She was committed to living a life of principle. Trump is committed to none of that. He is morally depraved. He's not just morally flawed. He is a terrible human being by all measures and all accounts. Now, you say, well, the Christians aren't as bad. I don't know. Charlie Kirk, the late Charlie Kirk, revered by Republicans all over the place, had a podcast where he talked about being American. To be an American, you have to believe in God and you have to accept God as the source of your rights. This Patrick Deneen who's out there, no, he's not trying to institute, well, he kind of, faith and family, he's into that. A full-out assault on the Enlightenment, the stuff that made America great, that's coming from the right. The Heritage Americans coming from the right. Groypers coming from the right. So to say, well, the right isn't as bad. Well, even if they're not as bad, they sure do suck. They really are not good when we're judging by the same standard that you and I do. Life as the standard of moral value. Human life is the standard of moral value with rationality as the primary virtue. Both sides are terrible. And I'm not going to say that a moral reprobate like Trump, who's instituting terrible policies, who is suppressing free speech, is a hero because he fights the guys that might be worse than him. That does not make him a hero.
I don't agree. All right.
Well, I know. That's why we had the debate. All right.
Wait, so let me respond briefly. There are millions and millions and millions and millions of American Christians who are really good people. And I'm friends with a number of them. And some objectivists are horrified. You have devout Christians as friends. Yeah, you're goddamn right I do. Because millions of them are really good people. They support individual rights. They love freedom. They love America for the right reasons. The Christians are vastly better than the leftists. Michael, leftists hate America. They want to destroy it. And wait. You keep talking about what a horrible human being Trump is.
Yeah.
Aside from the fact that he's fighting for us against the monsters, real monsters. Look at his private life. I mean, his family, his kids aren't like Joe Biden's kids. Joe Biden, you could say, is a horrible human being. His son's a drug addict and a criminal.
I'm not here to judge his kids, Andy.
Yeah, here to judge. Being a father, if somebody's a father, being a father is part of his character. Big part of his character.
Andy,
Trump's been a very good father. Why do you keep calling him this horrible human being and overlooking the good stuff in his?
Why do I overlook the horrible being? Because
keep calling him a horrible human being when he does all these obviously good things.
Well, he doesn't do all these obviously good things.
Well, how come his kids turned out so good?
Well, that's debatable, but we're not here to debate his children. Of course it is. Andy, I could take you through their social media feeds and show you lie after lie that they tell. But that's not what we're here to debate. It's not even hard to find. When recently Eric Trump posted a graph from Biden's administration on the decrease in fentanyl deaths and claimed his father was responsible for it. I mean, we could go through that, but that's not what we're here to debate. The reason Trump is not a good human being is because of all the lies he tells, because of the women he cheated on, because how he talks about women, because of how he's acted towards women. As I said, making excuses to go wandering around their dressing rooms, talking about his daughter's breast, allowing a person to call his daughter a piece of ass, lying repeatedly, lying over and over and over and over and over again about the 2020 election being stolen. That is horrible. Trying to suppress free speech by threatening media companies, threatening social media companies, buying stakes in private companies, lying about what tariffs are, implementing tariffs, threatening the Fed, putting pressure on the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates. These are not good policies. His immigration policies, he lies about that. He invokes emergencies that don't exist. He is not a good human being. If your argument for why Donald Trump is a good human being is that his sons are good people, then we can come back on and we can argue about whether
his daughters. No, you're presenting a very unfair, one-sided picture. I didn't even want to get into Trump's private life. I just wanted to,
it's
extol
necessary
his
to
virtue.
whether he's a hero. It's
No,
necessary.
yeah, but it's only a partial truth, and it's not the most important part of the truth. But you should do some more research since you're
I've
a
done
research
a ton,
guy.
Andy.
Yeah,
I've
well,
done a
you
ton.
need to do some more, brother,
Wow.
about how many people love Trump for all the good things he did for them in their lives. Go look it up. There's like, I don't know how many of them. Trump did this for me. Trump did that for me. Trump is enormously generous. Trump is a great human being. He's got.
What about the women who said he raped them, Andy?
What?
I mean,
oh yeah,
what women claim.
she was real credible.
She was found credible. She won the court case.
Yeah, on a civil case. You mean that idiot who said he raped her in the dressing room at Bergdorf Goodman? Come on, that case was preposterous.
Hold on. Here's
that case was bullshit.
You want me to say Trump is a good person because there's people that said he did good for him? For every
but you
person,
don't even count it, Michael.
Andy,
you don't even count it,
Andy. I don't care if he's nice to his pets. The overwhelming evidence from people in his own life, family members, the people that have worked for him, the people that were in his administration when he said he would pick the best people, those people all said his character's garbage. The very people he chose for his administration. The evidence is overwhelming. Overwhelming. You tell me that I need to look into this. Okay, we're at the question and answer. My one question for you is this, Andy. What are your sources of information? Where do you get your news? Where do you get your information from?
Well, I would ask you that question because I think you're looking at a lot of
you want me to tell you?
At a lot of leftist sources. Let me answer your question.
I'll answer it
where,
too when you're done.
Where do I get what is my source of information?
Yeah,
I look at reality. I could see what the left is. I could see what Trump is. I could see that Trump stands up. Look, has Trump done a lot of bad things in his life? Absolutely. I don't know who would be the most recent politician who hasn't. Reagan, maybe? I don't know. But has he done a lot of bad things? Yes. Should we properly condemn him for that? Yes. But is that outweighed enormously by his standing up for America against the monsters? Yes. It's outweighed enormously by entire orders of magnitude. You're not even in the ballpark of truth.
So you're not
even in the area code of truth.
So you're not going to answer the question?
I did answer your question. I look at reality.
What does that mean, Andy? You look out your window? I mean, what reality are you looking at? And you want me to tell you my sources?
Yeah, what are your sources?
Okay. Every morning I read the Dispatch. I read the Free Press. I also read National Review. I read Reason Magazine. I read Cato. I read Axios. I read News 1440. I go to Cafe Hayek. I go to the American Institute for Economic Research. I go to the American Enterprise Institute. I read Jacobin. I read Mother Jones. I read I'm on social media every day where people make an abundance of claims. And when they make claims, I fact check them. I look up what they're saying. I go to AI, ChatGPT, Claude, Google, Grok. I mean, and not only that, but when you go to 1440 or when you look up stories in 1440, they give you links to a variety of sources all over the place that will tell you things. I've also read Trump's book, Art of the Deal. I also used to watch The Apprentice. I've listened to him on Howard Stern. I know what the policies are. I've listened to podcasts where the right wingers right now, what they're pushing. I see their post on Twitter every single day. Those are my sources. They come from an abundance of angles. Left, right, center, libertarian, anarchist. All over the place is from where I get my sources of information. And I double check, triple check, fact check in multiple directions before I come out and say something. All the time. Those are my sources.
Good. Well, I respect you for that, Michael, that you spend your time doing that kind of research. I don't spend nearly as much time doing that kind of research, nor do I need to. I could get basic facts from Fox News or even from CNN, perhaps, God help me, on occasion. The real thing is, how do we assess it? How do we appraise it? What kind of thinking do we put into it? And if you're gonna deny, I get the basic facts. There's nothing I said about the left that was false, nor is there anything I said about Trump standing up to the left that's false. When you stand up and fight monsters in the name of some semi-free society that you support, you're a hero.
He's not.
He's not. America is a semi-free country, and Trump supports it. The left
no, he does not.
No, yes, he does. So, he stands up against the monsters, Michael. And they tried to shoot him. They brought lawfare cases against him.
They tried to shoot him
every name you could think of.
Andy, they tried to shoot him. Who's they?
Yeah, leftists. Who's
they? One guy tried to shoot him, who last time I knew was a registered Republican. One guy.
Which guy are you talking about?
The guy that shot him in Pennsylvania in the field.
What about the guy in Florida?
You said that guy. The guy that they picked up before he fired a shot. Yeah. That was one guy. You can't go by one guy and say they. That's not they.
Why not?
Because it's one guy.
Leftists want to kill him.
That is not epistemologically sound. No. I think his name was Brooks or Crooks, the guy that shot him.
Yeah, Thomas Crooks in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania Crooks. That is not the left. It's one man. Okay, Andy, give us your. You want to say anything to the people before we go out?
Yeah, I just would reiterate. And by the way, the left supports political assassinations, and they applauded Crook's attempt at killing Trump. They applauded the murder of Charlie Crook. They're monsters. Now, I agree with you to some extent that Trump, is a bad guy. He's like I said, with politicians since Reagan hasn't been. But he's the best. Nowadays, he's the best of a bad crop, because he supports a semi-free America against the totalitarians, and he puts himself out there. The guy's taking shots at him, guys calling him every name imaginable, calling him fascist, whipping up a frenzy against him, lawfare against him. I give him credit for that. He put himself out there to defend a semi-free country against the totalitarian monsters, and yes, that is heroic.
Okay, I've made the case that Trump, his character's terrible, his policies are not good. He's not standing up for a free society. I said semi, or for a semi-free society. He's making us less free, not more free. I ask the audience, please fact check every single claim I've made here. Please do. The standard of what a hero is ought not to be better than the left. I'm sorry. And as far as using insulting language, Trump has called people communists. He's called people criminals. He's called people pigs, disgusting human beings, losers, over and over and over again. I mean, I'm not going to say the left doesn't do it, but to act like Trump doesn't, come on. We could go through a list and list of people that Trump insults, including the POW John McCain. Remember what I started with. The tradition of heroism that we're drawing on goes back to Aristotle. It includes a component of character, and it includes accomplishments, even more so in Ayn Rand. In Ayn Rand, a hero is a rational person pursuing rational values in a courageous fashion and accomplishing great things. Trump is not rational, Trump is not a good person, and Trump is putting us in many ways in bad places with his policies. The guy tried to overturn an election. That right there disqualifies him from being a hero. So with that said, again, please fact check me. Begging you to fact check me. Fact check me about Trump's kids and how many lies they tell on Twitter if you need to. Fact check that as well. All right, Andy, where can the people?
Oh, hold on a second. Let me just respond briefly.
Well, Andy,
your facts may be impeccable, but your assessment is off, Michael.
Well, my assessment.
Like I said, let's just let me finish. Like I said, we got two choices. We got two choices. One guy wants to murder us. The other guy may or may not protect us. It's a no-brainer. And if he protects us against the murderer, as Trump does, yes, that's heroic. Whatever other bad things there are about him, it's heroic to stand up against the murderers and the totalitarians to defend the semi-free society.
Andy, to keep saying it's a no-brainer doesn't prove anything. It doesn't prove anything. And the bottom line is you keep making this choice between Trump and the left. I'm not talking about an election. We're talking about what constitutes heroism. It's irrelevant what the choice is.
No, it isn't.
Bad choices.
No, it
We're
isn't.
We're talking about heroism.
The guy who protects us from the murderers is heroic. Yes, he is. I gave the case.
Okay. Last thought before we go, because we've each had our chance now. The idea that, Andy, your evidence for that he's defending us from the monsters is that you get your information sometimes from Fox News. I've gotten my information from an abundance of sources over 10 years. I've assessed all these sources clearly, judging by a rational standard. It's up to the audience to determine whether my assessment of these facts is accurate and whether Andy's assessment of the facts is accurate. Okay, now, Brother Bernstein, please tell the audience where they can find your stuff.
Well, like I said, thank you, Michael. I got my merch. Here's the book on heroes. Here's the book on education. Got the booklet on climate change. And, they can go to my website, is andrewbernstein.net. They could find me on Facebook. And, I'm not hard to find. So,
He's not. He's on Facebook. We got a little spirited today. Andy and I are good friends. I want everybody to know that.
Well, we're family, and family can disagree in a spirited way, but we don't break up the family relationships over that.
We're not going to get a divorce. All right, audience, thank you so much. There will be no Everyday Ethics today, but we will be back tomorrow with another episode of the show. And that's all I have to say. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Thanks again to Christian Klein, and thanks to Andy Bernstein. Andy, thank you so much for coming on and doing this today.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, and thank you, Christian, for sponsoring this and contributing to my favorite charity, to the Bernstein Retirement Fund.
All right, Andy, take care.
Yeah, you too, brother.
Hi. Once this is up, can we
Are we still live?